John Lusk here of Lusk Archery Adventures. Series testing, successful hunting. I've got a brand new, really cool broadhead to check out today. It's the CLOVIS Broadhead by Triplepoint Outdoors. So in just a minute here, we're going to go through some of the design features and specifications, and then we're going to put it to the test. And for that test, I'm using my regimen for 2022, which includes my Bowtech SR6 and CP28, as well as Bishop Archery FOC King arrows for most of the shots, but then Bishop Fat Eliminators for the really hard impact shots because they're just like almost indestructible. They're amazing arrows. So let's zoom on in here and check out this CLOVIS broadhead. Here's a good look at the CLOVIS, and man, this is just loaded with all kinds of cool features and innovations. So let's dive in. First, the materials. The body, or the ferrule, is made out of aluminum. It's a 70-75 aluminum, which, like I always say, if you're going to use aluminum to save weight, 70-75 is the way to go because it's much stronger than 60-61. Not as strong as stainless steel, but it's still stronger than other aluminums. And then the leading blade and the main blades are both hardened stainless steel, and they're both 0.039 inches thick. So pretty thick blades, especially by mechanical standards. The cutting diameter of this leading blade is 0.55 inches, so just over half an inch. And the cutting diameter of the main blades is 1.6 inches. So it's a total pretty decent cut. Now, one thing that's interesting is you'll notice this tip on this CLOVIS model has a single bevel on the sharpening. And I don't know if you can see it there. I'll turn it like that or turn it up to where you can see it. And what that is the single beveling is the same on both sides. So it's not going to generate a rotation like it would if the single beveling were on opposite sides. So it's going to keep the broadhead going straight to maximize penetration, but it's going to make that edge a little more durable and a little bit easier to sharpen. Now, the main blades, and I'll go through the way they open in just a bit, but I want to draw attention to this now, are single bevel as well. So they're pretty thick, like I said. They have a pretty steep single beveling to them. So that is going to generate a rotation once the main blades penetrate the body, or that's the theory, that it's going to generate a little bit of rotation, but not by this main tip, just by these main blades. Now, they do make a tip right here that is a true single bevel tip. You notice it has beveling on opposite sides, so that is going to generate a rotation as it penetrates into a medium. And then with the main blades being single bevel as well, it's going to accentuate that rotation more. That's the theory. So that, I believe, they're calling their helicut tip. And then they also, interestingly enough, make this turkey tip, okay, that's going to cause extra damage, okay, with a turkey and impede penetration by design so that the arrow does a lot of damage and stays within the turkey. So it's kind of cool they have the modularity in those tips and that single beveling of these main blades, and the single beveling to cause rotation in one, and the single beveling that doesn't cause rotation in this one to maximize linear penetration. Now, the way it works is like a typical gator style head, that there's pressure put on these little wing butts, and that forces the blades to open. When they're closed, they're held in place by a magnet. They call it their Earth Tech technology, I think. And it's just a magnetic closure that's not going to lose its magnetism over time. And it takes 3 pounds of pressure to open these blades. So not a lot of pressure. It's nice to not have to worry about an O-ring or a retention clip or anything like that. And then you'll also notice that they pivot. So if there's a hard impact on one blade, it can pivot back. So that keeps the blade from bending or breaking, and also keeps there from being a deflection, and the arrow can pass straight through an animal with that pivoting action. However, I will note that these blades don't lock open. Okay, so as long as there's pressure, equal pressure on both sides, they maintain their full cut. However, if there's unequal pressure, like a bonus hit, then that magnet does kind of stick the blade back to it. And then this one is not, there's no pressure holding it, there's no force holding it open, so it can close back too. And it takes the pressure, the 3 pounds of pressure on these wing butts, to redeploy them or to keep that one open. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. Like I wonder if they're initially going to open, but because they don't lock, are they going to close? And with that magnetic closure, are they going to stay closed or are they going to reopen? I'm not sure. I'll have to test that in the best way that I can, but that's kind of one concern. Now, another thing you notice is these holes right here in the ferrule. There's 2 holes in the ferrule that are for these set screws that that come with the package and a little Allen wrench that you screw those set screws in, and then they keep the blades closed. So you can practice with the same broadhead and not have the blades deploy. You just want to make sure you take those 2 set screws out. Don't take this 3rd set screw out. That's a little bit bigger one, but take the other 2 out before you go hunting, because otherwise the blades won't deploy. That way you can just practice all you want and the blades are not going to dull. Now you will have to replace or resharpen this main blade, okay, because that is going to absorb a lot of damage when you practice. But it's nice that you can practice with the same head like that. Now, another concern I have, wondering, is with these holes in the main blade, these 2 holes, and with the blade being relatively narrow, I wonder with a hard impact how durable that's going to be. Is that going to be a weak point in the design of the blades or not? I'm really not sure. Maybe not if they're able to pivot. If they're not able to pivot, it might prove to be a weak point. I'm just not sure. So really eager to put this head to the test. Love all these different features that it has and really want to see how this Clovis performs. $300. It penetrated 8 inches. I know it doesn't look exactly like that the way everything's lined up, but that was the penetration, 8 inches. But I do want to note that through the entire length and penetration in the gel, the blades were in the closed position. They initially opened, but then closed before they got to the gel. But we'll test that more later with the opening test. $300. It penetrated through 51 layers. So here's the entrance on the rubber foam mat, which has the MDF behind it before it went into the gel in penetration test 1. And you can see that it opened very well, reached its full cut there on the initial impact into that rubber foam mat. But then here's the back side of that rubber foam mat. So there's the rubber foam mat, and then there's the MDF, and then another layer of the mat before it hits the gel. And you can see that the broadhead had really closed by the time it's exiting this second mat. And then here's the entrance into the gel, and you can see that it's in that same closed position, and it just remained in that closed position throughout the entire rest of the penetration. So now I want to do a second test with this leather stretched over a cardboard box and see how it opens. Once again, it opened really well. It reached its full cutting diameter on the initial impact into that leather. But then here's the back of that box, and it looks like one of the blades had already closed, and you can see the cut there, that it sticks out on one side, the full cutting potential, but then the other side, it looks like it was just kind of that little wing butt that made the hole in the cardboard box at the exit. So it looks like one of the blades closed by the time it hit the back of the box. It's in perfect condition after going through the MDF 3 times. So here's the head after impacting the steel plate on the first shot. Now, mind you, it's already gone through the MDF 3 times and held up quite well through that, but it just couldn't handle that super hard impact of the blades at the same time on the steel plate. And that's what I think happened is if there's a hard impact on any one blade, then the other, it just folds back, it pivots back, and the other springs forward. But when they're both hit at the same time, there's nothing to really absorb that kind of an impact. And so you can see the blades broke into at least 2 pieces each. Looks like they broke like right at that cutout. There's a hole cut out in there. And so that's where they broke off at that weaker point. But it is what it is. It shows the outer limit of what the Broadhead can handle when both blades hit something really hard at the same time. Then here you can see the steel plate, and you can see where the 2 blades opened properly and slapped into that steel plate, but they didn't penetrate very much at all because they just broke off. They couldn't handle that hard impact of both blades hitting at the same time. But that leading blade still did make a decent hole in the steel plate. So what did you think of the CLOVIS? Man, I tell you, there's a lot of things about this Broadhead that I really like. A lot of features. Love the flight. Love the modularity of those tips. Love the way that you can lock the blades closed for practice. Like that pivoting action. Love the magnetic closure, lack of O-rings. Like the overall cut size. So a lot of really cool strengths there. I do have a bit of concern about the durability, though I will say that it did very well through the MDF. And that's the most important, and that's the bulk of the scoring that I give, and the durability is the 3 shots through the MDF. But it was concerning a bit with the steel plate that when both blades are hit really hard, then that was a weak point, okay? There wasn't any way for the blades to absorb that energy, and those holes in the blades proved to be a bit of a weak point. But I don't know if that would ever really happen in a hunting situation. It's just a data point to consider. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do the concrete test because it didn't make it through the 2 shots in the steel plate. But that was a concern. Another concern is the way the blades pivot and they don't stay, they don't lock open. Okay, that's a bit of a concern that they can close, and then it takes a bit of force to get them to open back up again. And we saw that in the gel that they initially opened on impact. They opened really well in the MDF and the rubber foam mat, but then they closed back up by the time they hit the gel, and they stayed closed the entire time through the gel. So again, I don't know if that would really be replicated in a hunting situation with an animal, but it is something that's noteworthy and something to consider. But overall, I really like a lot of the design features of this head. So check out the score sheet and see how it performed in the areas that matter to you the most, and see if it might be a really good fit for you. I gotta say props to Triplepoint Outdoors for really great innovations, and I look forward to seeing what you come out with next.